deck list Jarvis is going to play. All right. Well, your boy knows a little bit about this deck. Blue-white miracles. Oh, blue-white-red miracles. Okay. See the Pyroblast in the sideboard, and looks like he's playing
4 cards that I'm really interested in the main deck. I see these accumulated knowledges.
Yeah, accumulated knowledge is some pretty hot tech. Lawrence Harmon has been working on it for a while, and I think it quote-unquote broke out at the GP, where a lot of players registered with it. I personally switched to accumulated knowledge 15 minutes before the main event, and it was very good for me throughout the event. It's pretty powerful now that there's no Deathrite Shaman in the format. Like, you get to play with a source of card advantage that doesn't require as much setup in the form of cantrips, which means you can actually cantrip properly. And also, it's just like independent, so if you top deck it late in the late game, it's like pretty good to play. But looking at the rest of Jarvis's list, I see he's playing almost exactly Lawrence's 75 with 3 copies of Flusterstorm in the main deck.
That is aggressive. I like it.
Yeah. And so, I mean, Monastery Mentor is a house we've seen repeatedly on the LPL. Bryant Cook just crushing opponents with this card. Hopefully, I mean, it's probably not as good in the format, in the matchup where, your opponent combos off on turn 1, but it's still like powerful, pending whatever Michael brings to the table next. And how do we feel about the sideboard in this matchup?
So we've got 2 surgical extractions, which will be great. Click's pretty good. A Needle can name Grizzlebrand if we're in the market for that. I don't know if that's enough value in Miracles to do that, but it's certainly something I've done playing D&T before. I feel like he has a good set of tools to fight the good fight here. But you have the matchup knowledge here. Who do you think takes this one?
I think it's going to be pretty dicey. I always feel like it's unlosable if I had the 3rd surgical extraction, but then, I mean, like, you saw the hand that Michael had in game 3, right? You always have the chance to lose to those kinds of hands. So it's usually a coin toss. Honestly, if I had the option to not play against Black-Red Reanimator in a 15-round tournament, I would take it. It was one of my 2 losses at the Grand Prix. Opponent just dumpstered me. So I think it'll be close. I think if we get past like turn 3 or 4, then Jarvis is heavily favored to win. So, I mean, yeah, let's see. I don't know.
Jarvis is my pick for the match.
Okay, yeah.
Like, he felt confident bringing this in of whatever his 2 remaining choices are. He has some graveyard hate here. He has a decent amount of interaction. And flopping Monastery Mentor into play closes games surprisingly quickly.
I agree. Let's get into the next game and see how it goes.
All right, so let's start by looking at Jarvis's hand. 1 Flooded Strand, 2 Brainstorms. That was just snapped off immediately.
And this hand is
much safer.
I agree. We have Brainstorm to ship back extra lands. Forcible can pitch the Jace. Turn 1, Volcanic go. And Bonde's hand seems...
It's sweet.
Oh my god, is this another... So we're going to start with Unmask. We have Reanimate.
Jeez. Jeez.
We can unmask target ourselves? Oh, no, not even.
No, we don't even have to.
Holy moly.
Unmask, pitch Grizzlebrand, Entomb, get another Grizzlebrand, Lotus Petal, Reanimate. Force of Will, you get nothing.
F's in the chat, please. My. Holy moly, this is absurd. So take this, and then here it's just... Wow, this is... incredible. So I see why now. I get a glimpse of why Eric is doing so well with this deck. Maybe Jarvis has a chance to brainstorm into another Force of Will. That would be, like, if you can stop the Entomb off this brainstorm.
So Jarvis did scry to the top, so he knows one of the cards that will be on top.
Okay. I'm curious. I don't know what card you would keep on top besides the Counterspell. God, I really hope it's a Forcible. That would be so insane. And it's brainstorming, and it's oh my god! Wow, that's amazing. And now I think, like, this is what I'm talking about, right? The black-red deck is a glass cannon deck. You stop one piece of it, and the whole thing starts crumbling down. Maybe there's just a chance that Jarvis can take away this match if Bonde doesn't draw anything for the next few turns.
All right. We did just get confirmation that the stride to the top was the force of will.
Oh my god! And look at Jarvis in the chat. He's oh my god. That's some hype stuff right there. All right. So.
Oh my gosh.
Uh-oh.
Oh jeez.
Well, if it's any consolation, it's just a Tidespout Tyrant. We could fetch
the thing that bounces the lands.
It makes you so Tidespout Tyrant, pretty powerful card, but Swords to Plowshares is a nice clean answer to that.
Yes. It's going to be kind of annoying because like he can Cabal Therapy here, take that Mentor, and set Jarvis back a land. Like this isn't the end of the world.
Right. Well, I don't think he actually knows about the Mentor because it was found off the Brainstorm.
Oh, it's off. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm going to hope here that. I'm very clearly biased. You guys know who I want to win. I'm gonna see. I think naming Mentor here is just unlikely to happen.
But the real Swords to Plowshares.
Exactly.
Oh, no, that doesn't make sense anymore because he just would have cast it in response.
Yeah, maybe like Brainstorm Ponder. Ponder is not unreasonable to name. But the utility in Cabal Therapy, casting it there is to actually just bounce the land more than anything else. And then next turn, if Bonde draws a land, he can
flashback looting to just bounce a land.
However, Gristlebrand is not a land, and Tidespout Tyrant comes crashing in for 5. Now this Brainstorm is a really good draw here. Maybe it'll. Ooh.
Okay. All
right, we take those, and so now. It's still possible. So Tidespout Tyrant is going to be able to bounce maybe at least the Tundra, but with the Misty Rainforest in play, I actually don't think Michael can stop this Terminus from clearing the Tidespout Tyrant.
Yeah. So
go ahead. Sorry.
Things are looking okay right now. I don't know that it goes so far as good because potential flashback on the Faithless Looting dumps a Grizzlebrand into the graveyard if Jarvis doesn't Flusterstorm that.
Right. Now, here's the thing, though. Jarvis clearly indicated, though, that he is the kind of person that would Flusterstorm a Faithless Looting.
And I think we have to see that here.
Right. The context is obviously different when you're playing Delver and when you're playing Miracles, but it looks like he's going to correctly identify that Faithless Looting is just really powerful here, and he's going to stop it from resolving. And good on him, because otherwise Gristlebrand would come into play the next turn, maybe even this turn.
So Jarvis fetches away his Mentor there.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So what do you think about accumulated knowledge in a matchup like this? I haven't played with this card at all, but it's my impression that it's very good in these long, fair matchups against things like, say, Grixis Control or D&T, but significantly worse than Predict in a matchup like this one. Is that accurate?
I think I would agree with you, just because you don't really get to reap the benefits of the card until much later in the game, and typically these games are decided very, very early on. That being said, cycling, finding a land, not so bad here. Jarvis seems to be in a very commanding position in game 1 of the second match. With an active Jace the Mind Sculptor in play, Black-Red Reanimator is going to struggle here because they don't really have a way to handle Jace. The Jace on summon is actually reasonably powerful, and especially since Tidespout Tyrant has been exiled, there's still a Nation Rider, but that's I don't know if Jarvis is going to let Bonde get to that far. As far as I'm concerned, this game looks about wrapped up as it can be.
So how long do you brainstorm for versus how long do you wait until you start fate sealing? What's your threshold there?
Well, you're asking the wrong guy. I never don't brainstorm. Discard cards in my cleanup? Sure, why not? Brainstorm. But in all seriousness, no, you're right. At some point, the EV on brainstorm just decreases, and you want to kill your opponent. Him being at 11 means that it's reasonably possible we might see Snapcaster Mage flash in here. But I would totally draw 3 cards off this accumulated knowledge. Just so, just putting it out there. There are 2 kinds of players. two kinds of Miracles players, and I'm very clearly in the Drago category. So yeah, and so here we see basically like the downside to Black Red Reanimator. Like one card got stopped, and that pretty much like just tumbled the House of Cards entirely.
Yeah,
it's going to.
I can't concoct a scenario now where Jarvis loses.
Right. I agree. And at this point, I think it's pretty elementary. Like, Jarvis just needs to, like, cast spells, put things on the table. It doesn't really matter what he does so long as he doesn't, completely bungle up. He could maybe, like, unsummon a Snapcaster Mage or something like that, but Mentor is just going to stomp face here, and we're going to go to game 2. Jarvis up, 1-0 in the second match. So let's take a look at sideboard, and let's see how Bonde is going to sideboard first this time.
So he's got to think about the graveyard hate that he's going to play against. And in Miracles, I think like Surgical Extraction is probably the most popular one since you're a Snapcaster Mage deck. Mm-hmm. So he has to have that in mind. So you see him trimming a Grizzlebrand here. This is very, very common where you don't want 4 copies of a card to be extracted if at all possible. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense to me.
Replacing it with an archetype of Endurance, it seems.
That card's a real pain to answer. Miracles is better equipped to answer it than most other decks with like Terminus, Supreme Verdict, and Council's Judgment. But for a lot of decks, that thing just like flops in play, and that like, what is it, like a green pig is just there forever.
The big pig, that's what we call it in the Bob Barag house, or what used to be the Bob Barag house. Yeah, but looking otherwise, he boarded a copy of Chancellor and probably brought in extra discarded Thoughtseize, right?
Yeah, so we saw Thoughtseize come in, Cabal Therapy come out. Okay.
And so let's go ahead and take a look at how Jarvis is sideboarding here. One key point about the Black-Red matchup as opposed to Blue-Black Reanimator is that you really do like your white removal spells in this matchup. If you can extract Grizzlebrand from the graveyard, it's really elementary and just exiling with Swords to Plowshares or Terminus a number of the fatties, just because there's no counter magic in the red-black deck. But Jarvis did bring in, I didn't see Vendilion Click come in, actually.
Yeah, he didn't bring that in. That surprises me a little bit, but...
Right. But, copies of Counterbalance and, Surgical Extraction definitely in.
Oh, geez. Michael has mulliganed into oblivion here. His hand does nothing.
Well, he is one card off. Like an Entomb off the top would be very good, but this is one of the downsides for the Black-Red deck, right? It is very all-in, so sometimes when things don't line up too well, you have to mulligan aggressively. And even on a mulligan to 5, the Black-Red deck could win, but it looks like Jarvis's hand is pretty padded here with Brainstorm and Force of Will, and an active counterspell now. So I'd be very surprised if...
So I do want to note that even though I said his hand was terrible, with that draw of Grizzlebrand, he could have unmasked himself, pitch Dark Ritual, discard Grizzlebrand, and just Lotus Petal, Exhume, YOLO, let's hope it works.
Yeah.
So even though his hand was terrible, he did have the option to try for a turn 2 Grizzlebrand still.
Mulligan to 5, still have the turn 2. But I like that he doesn't go for it there because he's respecting the open mana that Jarvis is showing, and he's also respecting that if things go sideways with the Grizzlebrand dying, he probably doesn't win the game at all. That being said,
he has to make a play soonish, but he'd really prefer to be able to punch a hole and then go for it. And right now, in order to try to punch that hole, he has to junk some real cards.
Right. I think Thoughtseize and Cabal Therapy are the best cards that Michael could draw off the top. But Jarvis, smelling blood in the water, is going to aggressively flash in the Snapcaster Mage, Brainstorm for more land drops. That's not too bad in this situation. I mean, you have Force, blue card, Flusterstorm, Counterspell, and lands for days.
Now we see Michael with the big brain play of, I'm not going to cast a spell. I'm just going to get 8 cards in hand, and we're getting the Grizzlebrand into the graveyard that way.
Right. And so let's see if he, I mean, like, to be fair, like, without surgical extraction, Bonde has Exhume, which he pitched it, but Reanimate, Animate Dead, Unmask, 4 cards. So Jarvis would, like, if the game goes on for like a lot of turns, that's still a number of counter spells that Jarvis has to have to match just the density of threats in Bonde's hand.
Yeah, and you see him pitching this Dark Ritual here. He does not need the mana. He does not need to go fast. He just needs to, like, punch this hole, get this Grizzlebrand into play, draw 7, even if it Swords to Plowshare afterwards. This is something that might favor him. Mm-hmm. But there's still a wall of counter magic on the other side.
And I mean, look at this. Like, Jarvis is very aggressively countering these okay, here's a Brainstorm. More information, and Flusterstorm off the top is quite strong here, actually. That's going to probably seal the deal.
The second Flusterstorm is pretty disgusting.
Yeah. Oh god! Every time I see like a really like lots of copies of Flusterstorms, I get like PTSD to Fluster on Fluster math.
God, I would never want to do Fluster on Moto. I can't imagine the clicking.
WotC should have like a dedicated like link to a video on the mothership that says, "Here's how you do Fluster on Moto." But anyways, back to the game. Looks like in this situation, Bonde is just saying, "I'm going to unmask you twice. Hope you don't have 3 counter spells, and just go for it."
Jarvis just like hovering over the Flusterstorm, just ready to do it.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, did I say 3? Because I meant 4. Like, we also have, this is on a mulligan to 5, and we're, this is absurd. Like, look, this is the power of Black Red Reanimator, like, just in terms of, like, redundancy, resiliency, and oh my god, wait, did he pitch He pitched the Flusterstorm and not the accumulated knowledge, so it looks like that slight mismatch.
Uh-oh.
Well, let's think about it. Maybe it's not the worst case, because Jarvis does have 2 Swords to Plowshares, and here you plow the Grizzlebrand, he goes up to 9. I mean, he gets a fresh grip, which is kind of irritating, but it's not like the game is over right now.
So I'm just thinking, is there any reason to Swords the Grizzlebrand there as opposed to later on? Like, is there any reason why he should just, like, wait to answer something else?
Probably not, but it's negligible in the grand scheme of things. So yeah, Bonde's going to find a land for this Cabal Therapy. I don't believe he knows Jarvis's hand.
So he just names Jace blind, as it's something that could come down and bounce the creatures that he could potentially get later.
Right, and Jace is a good name here. That being said, the 7 cards that or the 5 cards that he has now, Entomb is going to be, like you said, very powerful here. But that Flusterstorm is going to be even stronger. And Accumulated Knowledge here is like showing its strength, just drawing more and more and more cards.
Yeah, the first one is bad. The second one feels good. And any one after that is absolutely absurd.
Yeah, just wait till you get to the point where you start flashing them back with Snapcaster Mages. So here, Jarvis is still going to defensively counter this Faithless Looting. I like that because we can't take the risk of, Grizzlebrand going into the graveyard doesn't even matter that much because, Lampalot's only at 6 life. He can't even pay 7 to draw cards. But why not just choke Michael out of the game? Just restrict his selection, filtration, anything he's doing, right? You just want to be able to say, like, no.
So this counterbalance is super scary, because, like, it's a very good card. But Michael actually, I don't think, can win the game if there is a 2 on top of the library right now. Because Reanimate is no good. His life total is just too low. So a 2 on top will counter Animate Dead and Exhume. The only ways he has of putting a real creature in play.
Sadly, land is not a 2 CMC spell for the top of this deck. But Snapcaster Mage off the top, A+, clean.
I heard you guys like Flusterstorm. And we've cast a couple of those. So, like, what's one more Flusterstorm between friends, really?
And so here we're going to see the power of the big pig in this matchup. Archetype of Endurance making the Swords to Plowshares look a little bit embarrassing, but the good news is Jarvis still has copies of Terminus in his list, so worst case scenario, we're not really that afraid. I didn't get to see what the blind flip was, but it looks like
Force of Will is the blind flip.
Oh, that's a pretty good blind flip if I do say so myself.
Yes, Snapcaster Brainstorm is available if for some reason Snapcaster Fluststorm is not good enough.
And looking to see what he bins, I'm almost certain it's going to be... Ooh, it's Iota. Okay. That one's frightening for sure.
That is a decent target.
Right. Iona on white is one of the reasons why I value Jace the Mind Sculptor very highly in this matchup.
So this can just be Snapcaster Flusterstorm. That'll put 4 points of power onto the battlefield, and that means that Jarvis is going to be taking down this match.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because I wonder if he'd played the Animate Dead instead. That would have given him some resiliency to the Flusterstorm in the graveyard. But is what it is. Looks like we're in a tie game now, so that's going to even it up 1-1 in this best-of-5 series. Jarvis and Michael even. So it's like predicted. Man, you're like 2 for 2 now. That's amazing. I bet you're going to get all of these right. I want to see the full 5 for 5. But yeah, it's pretty much. Yeah, I feel like in the first game, let's be real, Jarvis. That Force of Will on top was like pretty clean. That's some good magic right there. And then in game 2, I feel like it was just like the black-red deck kind of like crapping out on itself almost. You know, like that happens in a certain subset of games. Like when you're Belcher and you don't have all the pieces that you need. Yeah, how do you feel about that match? Exciting, right? We get to watch more